And I look for a motion that the minutes be approved.
So moved.
Moved by Mary Gay, seconded by
I will.
Kat. Okay, I'll take Ruth first then. And any further comments? All in favor? That's carried. Now we'll move on to the visioning topic. We've got Shauna here to walk us through this portion of the meeting. And so you go ahead, Shauna. With the help of Chris.
So today I'm just going to give a quick overview of both of our summer programs that we're running this summer. So Camp Stream and Teen Zone. Next slide. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Camp Stream. So this is our program for children ages 2 to 11. So it's a 7-week virtual program, and it actually officially launched yesterday. So we have 2 age groups within this program. So our explorers are ages 2 to 6, and then our navigators are ages 7 to 11. And you'll see on the right-hand side, we have some mascots that we've created this year too. So our Explorer Kangaroo is on all of our documents that we've created for our 2 to 6-year-olds. And then we have our Navigator compass flashlight image for our navigators. So this year obviously is a little bit different because we're not able to do in-person programming. So what we've done is we've created a Google Classroom for our participants. And within this Google Classroom, we have lots of different activities and videos and documents each week for both age groups. Our main program component this year is our weekly camp guide. So our camp guide, we have a different one for explorers and navigators. So within this camp guide, there's 6 different activities that children can complete each week. We've also created a book tracker for participants. So this is a way that families can track reading through the summer. And I'll show you an example of that later on in the presentation. And then we also have a number of special guests and performers through the course of the summer. So that includes, outside performers as well as staff performers as well. And yesterday we had our first special guest who was children's performer Eric Traplin. So he is from the KW area, and he did a Facebook Live concert for us yesterday at 11 a.m. It was 45 minutes long, and he was amazing. He was energetic. He had kids, we couldn't see them, but he was trying to get kids up and dancing. He had sound effects, music, bubbles going. My own 2 children watched it as well, and it was a lot of fun and a great way to kick off Camp Stream this year. Next slide. So this was just a newsletter that we created and that we sent to schools and daycares to raise awareness of our program and let families know how they register. We sent it to all Middlesex County schools, and I also had help from Nadine Devon, who has some contacts that she sent it to as well. So it just gives an overview as to what to expect from the program. When I created this presentation, some of our documents were still in draft form and weren't completed yet. So this is one of those that wasn't quite finished yet. But this also talks about prize draws. So we did incorporate some prizes this year. So typically in summer, all of our branches have their own prizes that they distribute through the summer. But we are doing it collectively this year. And Lindsay actually had a really great idea for prizes, and we have purchased them all from local Middlesex County businesses this year, which has been really greatly received from our community. So once a participant completes one or more activities on their camp guide, they email it to our summer learning email address, and they're entered in to win one of the weekly prizes. And that's another great component that we've used this year is we've created our own email address specifically to handle questions, concerns, and registration information specifically for our summer learning program. So it's been really helpful to help organize and keep communication flowing between myself and registered participants. Next slide. So this is just an example that we have sent out to families and schools and daycares, as well as our social media. This is what we put out about 2 weeks ago, just giving an overview of the Explorer Camp. So this is for our 2 to 6-year-olds, and just to give families an idea of what to expect this summer. So our main component for our 2 to 6-year-olds are virtual experiences. So the early on team has really jumped on board this year to help out with our summer programming. It's been a wonderful collaboration, and all 4 staff members have worked really, really hard to help create an awesome program for kids. So each staff member has their own character that they have created. So for example, Allison is Merlin the Math Wizard, Donna is Nutsy the Squirrel, Jenny is Bubbles the Mad Science Professor, and then Janice is Clarice the Artiste. So there's just a little bit of an explanation as to the virtual experiences that they'll be providing for kids through the summer. So these are simplified science experiments, exploration ideas. For example, Donna this week did a nest building activity. So she went out in the woods in her squirrel costume, collected materials that she could build a nest with, and then talks about nest building with kids, and then encourages them to go out and explore and create their own. So we upload these videos to YouTube as unlisted videos, and then they can access the camp guide. So those have been going over really well. And Chris Harrington has been really great in helping with editing videos, which is a new skill that we have had to kind of learn on the fly. We both took a video editing course in library school, and it has come in really handy over the last couple of weeks. To finish off for the Explorers, we are also offering a weekly campfire story time. So this one is live by Zoom, so families do have to register for this program. Last night was our first one, and we had 64 children attend, as well as 36 caregivers. So it was a lot of fun. Obviously, there are benefits in terms of the children being able to sing together and read books, but it's also nice to see kids get excited to see other kids. I know from my own experience, my kids have really been missing that connection with their friends. So just being able to watch other kids and connect and see other kids singing along, it was really great to see that last night. I've created videos each week for both age groups that focus on a specific ebook of the week. So these are just showing families that we have 3 different options right now to explore ebooks, including Cloud Library, Hoopla, and Tumble Books as well. So I just highlight a couple of books for each age group each week in video format, and then encourage them to explore all those different opportunities. Vanessa Jenner from Strathroy has recorded a family story time each week that we're including. She's also decided to include her dog Sam, which I think will be a lot of fun for kids to see as well. And then the last point is just highlighting again that we do have some virtual performers from outside organizations coming in to do some programming as well. Next slide. So this is just an example of the camp guide. It's not filled out yet, but they have been completed now. So each one will feature, each week it will feature 6 different activities that families can complete. So those virtual experiences with Nutsy the Squirrel, those would be in a box. The ebook of the week would be in a box. The campfire story time would be in a box, just to give you a bit of an example. And on the right-hand side is Donna in her Nutsy costume. So that is her in her squirrel, her Nutsy persona. So it's really fun if you have the chance to be able to watch one of the videos. They're really well done. And then at the bottom, it just talks about, again, what else we're offering for this age group. Next slide. And this is just an example of the Navigator. So it's the same format, it's just the content will be different. So our library staff have really jumped on board to help support this program, even though it's a bit uncomfortable recording yourself and doing that. It's not something that our staff is used to doing. Everyone has really stepped up to the plate and just jumped right in to try it, and they're turning out really, really well. So just as an example, Jean is going to host a live program on Zoom for scratch coding, which is kind of a computer programming program. We've also done some virtual experiences with some of our other staff members. There's a paper marbling program, a lava lamp program. They focus on the different aspects of Camp Stream. So science, technology, reading we've added in, engineering, art, and math. So they all kind of hit on one of those topics. We've learned over the past couple of weeks that Middlesex County residents absolutely love trivia. So we decided to create a weekly family trivia night that our navigators can register for. So this will be every Thursday night on Zoom. Doug and I have also been doing a virtual book club for kids that we're going to extend through the summer as well. And Casey Lyle, which is a Strathroy Library staff member, is also doing a program for us in July that talks about how to write a book and some other aspects of her experience as an author. Next slide. So on the left-hand side, you'll see I created a book tracker document that families can input the number of books that they read over the summer. So we've tried to create all the documents electronic so that if they don't have a printer at home, they should still be able to save the PDFs onto their computer and enter in the numbers of books that they read, or if they're doing a book report, for example, they should be able to type it in. We've also explained that participants can create their own documents if neither printing or saving to their computer works. So the incentive for completing the book tracker at the end of the summer will be, we'll do a prize draw specifically for those participants who complete that over the course of the summer. It's also really neat to see how many books children in the county read through the summer as well. When I created this presentation originally for our library meeting, Chris and I were working on a promotional video for Camp Stream. Since then, it's been finished and we posted it on our Facebook account. Like I mentioned earlier, Eric Chaplin started us off yesterday with a virtual concert. We started our promotions for this program 2 weeks ago. So we did a media release, some radio ads, a radio interview, and then some social media ads as well. And I think that's pretty much it for this slide. Next slide. And then lastly, we have our program for our teens. So that's youth ages 12 to 18. So this year they are encouraged to register for a Teen Zone program using the Beanstack Tracker app. So we've used this program in years past, and we do have subscription until February. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to use it again. There are a lot of library systems using Beanstack this year in response to virtual programming needs. So this program also runs for 7 weeks. We've created a couple of different opportunities to have fun. So participants can log their reading. They can also write book reviews and complete activities. So Doug Warnock and I have been working on this program, and we've created a few different fun activities to go through this summer. A virtual escape room is one example. Excuse me. We're also doing a trivia night. We've created a book bingo form, and we're also expanding our virtual book clubs, and we're doing a YA book club for this age group as well. So there are some prizes associated with this program as well, based on badges earned. So they can earn badges based on how many pages they've read. So you'll see on the right-hand side, there's an example of some of the badges that they can earn through the program. So once they've read 25 pages, for example, they'll earn the Blue Sky badge, and they'll also earn a ballot into the prize draw. So we're looking forward to connecting with this age group through the summer as well, through a series of several different live Zoom events too. And just as an idea of registrations, as of this morning, we have 474 children registered for Camp Stream. So that includes 284 kids in the 2 to 6 age group and 190 kids in the 7 to 11 age group. And for the teen zone, we have 13 children as well. Teens are youth, I guess I should say, registered for this program. And Liz Adama also created an adult summer reading program. So it'll run the same length of time, just a little bit different. And I checked this morning and she has 26 adults registered for this program. So we're trying to offer something for everybody. I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Shauna. It's a good job. I mean, it's tough working through these type of times with this kind of program. And I'm just going to open up to any library members that have any questions with respect to this visioning session. No comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Shauna. And I understand you have to leave shortly, so I thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next, we'll move on to item B, which is action items, phase 1 reopening. Lindsay, you've got a report on this. You want to walk us through this one?
Do you? Yes, thank you. So I'm just going to touch on some of the aspects of the report, go into a bit more detail on a few of the items, and I'll try to watch the chat box as well for any questions, but stop me at any time. Obviously, I'll try to keep my eyes on the screen too. So the purpose of this report is to provide an overview of where we're currently at with our service and a framework within which to help make decisions and set a path for library services in Middlesex County. So where are we now? On May 14th, we entered phase 1 of the provincial plan, and we were allowed to begin delivering library materials to patrons at that time. We started with a period of mailing requests to people at home. And as of right now, we've shipped out about 700 packages this way in the last month and a half. We're bundling items together to kind of maximize our postage budget that we have. The average package costs about $1.40 to send, so it's really reasonable. And we're using our existing postage budget for this project. So it's working really well, and Liz has been managing it from library office and doing an amazing job and getting really great feedback from people at home. They are excited to receive. It's like getting, mail is a fun thing to receive sometimes. So it's like getting a present in the mail. And now we're adding the curbside pickup option. So this will be offered at 6 branches by mid-July. So then on June 12th, we moved into phase 2, and we were authorized to open for limited on-site services such as computer access. And so we will be launching our by appointment computer service at the Strathroy branch next week. And then moving on to the other 5 designated branches, they'll come on board later in July. So that's a bit of a snapshot of where we're at right now. So we've done a lot of work to get where we need to be open for this level of service. We've purchased our plexiglass germ guards for service counters, and we'll have these in place for when we move to the computer appointments. We have our supply of PPE, our masks, shields, and gloves for staff. We'll also be requiring the public to wear masks when they use the computers. So we have that. We've established that supply as well. We have our hand sanitizer and cleaning spray and all of those supplies. And most importantly, we have our new guidelines and procedures for staff. So these include screening checklists, cleaning guidelines, and guidelines for when PPE should or must be used. We have specific guidelines for curbside service and technology sanitizing procedures. So we're going to be, wiping everything down after use and all of those things. And we have our guidelines for handling returned materials. We've just moved from a 7-day quarantine period to a 3-day quarantine period following a study that was done on library materials. So a little less onerous for staff, but we're ensuring the safety of staff and the public when we're handling the items in our book drops. And of course, we continue to enhance our virtual programming and services so that we're still connecting with patrons at home. So we've done this work to prepare staff and particularly to prioritize their safety. And we've done a lot of work to change our spaces to meet these new needs. We've added things like signage, washable computer keyboards. So that'll help with keeping things clean and sanitized after each use, and preventing access to collection areas. John Elston and myself we visited each of the 6 branches once to do like a preliminary inspection, and then we're going back over the next 2 to 3 weeks to do a final full facility inspection for the Joint Health and Safety Committee to ensure that everything is in order before allowing the public in. So that's a really important step that we've had to take. And so we've made all these decisions and set this path based on some guiding principles and key assumptions. And these are noted on page 2 of the report. So we'll just go through what they are right now. So you'll see there under guiding principles, health and safety is a top priority for both staff and the public, obviously. We continue to assess what we did pre-closure, and this reimagining of operations and services will be ongoing as we move forward. We've worked to establish strong lines of communication amongst staff and with the public, so we stay on the same page, which isn't always an easy thing when we're working with a lot of unknowns, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of misinformation out there. So the more communication we have with people, the better, and we're establishing that. We've listened to our patrons and used our understanding of the unique needs of county residents to set our course. So that ties into the mailing of library materials. It's not something that many other systems took on, but it made sense for us. It made sense for our system and for our patrons, and it's worked out well. And we've also consulted with our peers for best practices. So those are our guidelines. When we look at the overarching principles that we followed, there are a number of assumptions that we have to make so that we can prepare and plan when there aren't a lot of certainties. So we can assume under the list of assumptions we have, this will be a phased reopening that will increase and expand over time. It's not going to be an immediate return to pre-closure service. Another assumption is that direction to reopen may come with very little notice. We've already experienced this a couple times with the phase 1 and 2 announcements. I think we're kind of getting used to this, where we hear that we're in the next phase and we're allowed to do something more. We have a little moment of panic, and then we settle and we decide what our next steps should be, and we move forward in a safe and deliberate way. And so we're getting more comfortable with those kind of short notice announcements. We can assume that occupancy limits and physical distancing protocols will be standard practice. In my talks with other libraries, many are hoping that we get kind of clearer direction on what those occupancy limits should look like for libraries, but I think we'll likely have to decide for ourselves. We are not like stores, even though we're kind of lumped in with retail sometimes. People aren't in and out quickly, or they weren't, and in our pre-closure period, people like to linger in our spaces. So we need to figure out how we can best manage this, what's going to be safe and what's going to be manageable for our staff and for our service. Another assumption, plans may change as the situation evolves, and this should probably say will change, because that's a certainty. There's a lot of things we don't control, so we may have to react quickly and change course. Another common feeling amongst area libraries is that they don't want to go to huge lengths to fully open just to turn around and have to shut everything down in a month. So again, we all have to, we're all taking this phased approach, setting up these plans, taking our time, and hoping that we can keep building rather than having to cut back if there's another big outbreak. And another assumption, there will be significant unmet demand for library services and materials. And this isn't something that we're really comfortable with as library staff, and you yourselves as the library board. We know we won't reach everyone we want to. We won't meet our pre-closure numbers. Many people will not be satisfied with the level of service and access. So we just have to really continue to focus on what we can do, continue to experiment with programs and services, and look for those opportunities to fill gaps wherever we can. So just keep moving forward and improving. Continue with the assumption staff will be cleaning and sanitizing. So staff have always done a certain level of cleaning. It'll just be that much more important from here on out. So focusing on those high touch surfaces, all the same messaging that you get when you're in a store or, you know, in other public areas. And this will be for our staff's own safety. So they'll be responsible, you know, for cleaning up after themselves in their work area, and then also for the safety of the public. Working from home will happen wherever possible. Only a few positions in the library allow fully working from home. So those are things that we're working on, but we're also looking at scheduling branch staff in pods to kind of limit that potential exposure and spread across branch teams. So as more staff come back, that's the system that we're looking to implement at the branches where staff will be working. Staffing levels may change over time. So our current service level can be sustained with our current full-time staff. My intent would be to increase service hours for curbside and computers. And so at that point, we'll need to bring back some part-time staff, but this will also be a phased approach. It's not everyone returning at once. It's looking at what we need and filling those needs. And so I'll be working with Bill on what that looks like. Staff training will be a huge priority, and that training will change over time, just as our guidelines and policies will adjust and change. And we can assume that demand for online services will continue and may increase. So the closure, you know, it forced some people to move to ebooks and move to digital resources that weren't comfortable with it before. So we have those new groups. And then for others, they're using our collections more and more. We've shifted some funds from print collections to our digital items, and we're also evaluating some of the products that we currently subscribe to, thinking of whether we need to make changes in the future. And so our 2021 collections budget will reflect those changes as well. Just going to look down at the chat box here.
Ruth had a question.
Yeah, so mention people not being happy with the speed, availability of services, and pent-up demand. Are you currently getting complaints? No serious, like not a huge number. We do, yeah, of course there are those people who want their books, and they also want to be in the branch. There are some people who have requested not to receive their books until their branch opens. So I think it's that whole experience that some people are missing, which is, you know, understandable to a certain degree, but the majority of the feedback has been positive. As we start to interact more, moving to curbside, we're going to be seeing people already when we're working outside at Strathroy, setting up the lines on the sidewalk. People are like jumping at us, wondering when we're going to open, and so, you know, there may be a bit more honesty coming from them as we see people more, but for the most part, it's been very positive. People do have patience, but I'm sure we'll get to that point where their patience is starting to run out. Yeah.
I think Lindsay's right, Jim. It's two important points. One is people were patient when businesses were closed. And then now I've started to see people say, well, what's stopping you? You know, it may not be in the form of a complaint letter, but what's stopping you from getting back? And they don't realize sort of all the things we have to think about. If a business can open, why can't the library be open? That's the kind of stuff I'm hearing sort of anecdotally. And then, so the more they see businesses open, and I think the more we're going to get these types of questions. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're actual complaints, they're just expectations. And I think the second point I'd like to make is that Lindsay's exactly right. It's not the books and everything else that they're missing, it's the experience. That's the part that I think is the part that I'm hearing the most about. We want to be able to go and sit in the library and do what we used to do. And so I think that's where we're going to hear a lot.
Bill, just if you look at some, you know, I don't want to keep going down this path, but with respect to different stores that open, people wait in line like 20, 30 deep at Canadian Tire or someplace just to get in. And like, I wouldn't want to see that at our libraries where you stand out there and they're marched way down the sidewalk to get in and pick up a book. I mean, the way we're doing it now is at least they're getting it. We put it in their hands, but I think we have to really be careful that, you know, we don't create another staff member having to stand outside with a counter. That's all.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, that they're used to waiting for certain services inside. But Lindsay, you might have some more anecdotal information on this than I do, but it seems like the other thing that people are missing in the comprehensive libraries is some of the tertiary services that were provided in there. And, you know, that's the other thing where I think is our next pressure point. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, we're just kind of starting to hear from some of those other agencies, you know, asking what our situation is. And so it's going to be a lot of back and forth, knowing, you know, like Vanier with the walk-in talk-in clinics. When are we going to be able to offer space, number one, for just appointments, but then a walk-in service? Like it does get complicated, but I think with this approach, and later on, I'll touch on, you know, what we have to think about, what can happen when the doors are closed to like library users versus when the doors have to be open. And I think there's, you know, there's room in there. It is just going to be complicated, but I think everyone's in the same boat and agencies are finding different ways to connect with people. And if we can just continue to support those, then I think we'll make some good progress.
But I agree with you, Lindsay, though, the numbered phases of which you're opening and how you're going to open. And I think you have to be very cautious with that because you don't want to go the other way where somebody hits a panic button and then you're back to where we were, you know, 2 months earlier. I think it's very important that these are looked after in that slow chronological order.
And we still hear from people that, Jim, that think we're going to go back to the old way. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to, like any change, this is going to be, there's going to be a new normal here for quite a while. And we have to slowly adjust people to the new normal. And there's some people that just will never want to adjust to that. And we'll hear from them. We're going to hear, I've already started to hear, you know, just nobody's writing me a letter yet, but they're saying you should be open if the stores are open. That kind of stuff I'm starting to hear. And I'm sure in talking to my colleagues that this is not a Middlesex issue. This is a, you know, actually I heard something yesterday from one of our counselors who said, you know, there's a public perception that public employees are trying to create a Valhalla where everything is perfect. And that's actually a good comment because I think there is a public perception that that's what we're doing, but I think we're never going to get it absolutely perfect. There's always going to be a risk, but our job is to limit the risk as much as possible. And that's what we're going to do.
So the next part of the report talks about risks and constraints. So as we move forward, we have these items to keep in mind as well. So one of the constraints for part-time staff is we don't know who will be able to return to work. So we'll be sending out a survey to start that conversation so we can kind of plan accordingly. The childcare and school situation right now is unknown. Some childcares are open, some aren't. I know mine isn't on a personal note. And school, you know, there's still so many unknowns about what September is going to look like. So are we going to have staff where that's a challenge for them? Will they have other childcare or other caregiver responsibilities? Are there medical concerns that they have? So have to work through that constraint for sure. Some of our buildings, as you know, will be very challenging to reopen while any restrictions exist. So size, shared space, layout. So those are going to be challenges that we'll need to look at and plan accordingly. Supply and procurement issues. So we're pretty good right now with most of our supplies coming in a timely manner. But this could be another challenge again in the fall when there's increased demand as if schools are open and if there's another surge. So that's something that we'll need to keep in mind. The challenge of any new or periodic government restrictions, so any changes on that end, and then just thinking about budget. So we're in a good position right now. We've shifted funds around to cover new costs, and we're postponing some projects. But we are being careful, and we know that we have to think ahead to next year and what that budget will look like. The warden has a question.
Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Lindsay, just going back to the PPE, and this is more a comment, and I'm sure you already know this, but I would suggest with the PPE is, you know, not getting into the position where you need it, is getting, even if you're on a wait list, even if you place an order and you know it's not coming till November, is just make sure you get in that queue. I think the masks, I think everybody seems to have a good handle on masks because a number of them are being produced now in Canada. So that's better. But with the like the sanitizer, there's still an issue with that. I do know that. Like, well, I know, you know, with my deputy mayor, his in his job, you kind of get some insight into that supply chain. And the one thing is just get in that queue, because if you're not, then you're going to get into trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And I feel like a bit of a hoarder. I am stockpiling sanitizer at this point, but
Is that just at your house or is that for the organization?
all over. No, it's here. Building where I am, and we've got an inventory so that I know who's taking what, and yeah, but yeah, with the sanitizer and with the cleaning supplies as well, because we had our first choice and we're still on a back order for those items, so we had to move to our second choice of cleaner. So it's
and the other, there's two steps in that process the word's talking about, Jim, and the first step is really to understand what our needs are going to be and making sure that we have a good list of what that looks like. And so I've tasked Jessica and John Elston, Jessica and I and John Elston, to make, for the whole organization, start collating sort of what our needs would be to take us through into April of next year if this new normal keeps existing that long. And so they're doing that. They're also doing a survey with department heads about what they think the additional needs are for their particular department. Because what the warden's saying is exactly right. It's amazing when you start adding up everything. I've only seen the preliminary data, but when you start adding up the type of volume we need to just stay open, I wouldn't want to be in a position where I have to close something because I can't get hand sanitizer. And so I've tasked Jessica and John with not only sourcing, but adding it up. And it's not easy. As the warden mentioned, it's not easy. And I know, I think John reached out to Dave, or is going to reach out to Dave, Kathy. And but that's really what the goal is, to make sure, because I got to worry about nursing homes and ambulance stations too, but it's going to be a real struggle. I could see a time where we're in November where we're probably going to say, well, this can't operate because there's just no PP available. Like something that's discretionary can't operate because no PP available. I can see that coming too.
Well,
So we're trying our best to get ahead of it.
Gordon?
I can just jump into, like, I mean, with the masks, as I say, I think we're getting a better handle. But, you know, as this question keeps being raised about making them mandatory, which I don't think the province will do, but businesses, that might be something that is filtered through businesses, as more places say, and if you're going to mandate, if you're coming into the branch, you have to wear them, then we have to be prepared to supply them. Not everybody is going to have access to a sewing machine or to the surgical masks. So we have to make sure that we always are able to supply that. And that's not just for us, that's for anybody that's going to say you need to wear a mask coming in.
Yeah, and I would say right now that it would be an impossible mission.
Oh.
Like you would not, like, it's one thing to say we're going to have to stay open, but if you asked me right now, Jim, can we do that sustainably for 3 months, 3 weeks? Like, I would say no. It's just not possible right now. And that's what I think the word is highlighting, is we have to be careful. And that's why I think your comment, Jim, about how we have to manage expectations, opening very slowly and knowing we can sustain opening is really critical, because you don't want to sort of give it, take it away, give it, take it away. That's when we'll really get, the complaints adding up.
Right.
And Ruth had another question in the chat box, just any thought to offering entrance by appointment only? And definitely, I think that that has to be part of the model. Another thing that I heard about a library in Germany has reservations for every seat. So a computer is a seat at a table is a seat. A seat in their newspaper reading room is a seat. So you could book a space in the library. These are all just different models. That wouldn't work for our patrons. I don't think people just wouldn't do it necessarily if that's how we were going to try to structure our open hours. But definitely looking at those appointments, any way that we can manage the traffic and anticipate who's going to be in the building and work with that. That's definitely the model that we're working towards, and starting with the computer appointments.
Yeah, I agree with you with that, because I think our library branches are more community oriented, and they're residents that are right there, as opposed to when you mentioned someplace like Germany. But this would be extremely difficult, and I think even to make an appointment is going to be tough enough. But I think it might be the only way that you could control the volume that comes in and how long the volume stays. But Mary Gay, you had a question?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. I was just going to comment on that too. It's going to be hard for staff to even police what we're going to propose. And I suspect you're going to do appointments for computers, Lindsay, and allow so many minutes and then so many minutes to clean. And it's going to be really challenging for staff. 2 questions. Lindsay, with talk of reopening, have you witnessed or experienced any anxiety issues amongst staff about that?
So far,
And I have another one after.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So far, I think the pace that we're moving at, staff are really comfortable. And the fact that so much of what we're doing is still closed doors, like it's still controllable access, and that, like, from what I've heard, is making everyone feel well taken care of, and they know that we have the supplies that they need. I think that there are concerns from staff with children and how that works together, and they want to work at 100% productivity all the time, and it's becoming more, it's sometimes a challenge. So I think there are some anxieties out there, but I just have fantastic staff, and I can't get over it. And hearing, not every library is in our position.
No.
I think all, we've got our 6 full-time branch supervisors. They're all happy to get back to their branches and happy to have the opportunity to see their patrons and serve them at a higher level. I think anxiety will naturally happen, and concerns will come the more staff we bring back. That's just going to be natural, and so we're definitely prepared for that. But we just have amazing staff, and I think they feel well supported, so things are good now.
But I think that's right, Lindsay. Most of the staff members that we hear from that are concerned are more concerned, like I'm talking generally now in the organization, Mary Gay, they're more concerned about what would happen if the emergency order was lifted and we sent them back to work, not from a health and safety perspective. Right. They think that we've got that. Frankly, I think our HR actually went overboard in terms of health and safety and making sure that there's no liability there. And I think the word's gotten out to all the staff that aren't even back yet that you don't have to worry about this. There's lots of precautions in place, way too many in my estimation. But anyways, they're all there. It's more about the logistics of what do you do with other commitments that you can deal with easier when you're at home, like Lindsay said, childcare and those other parts of life that just aren't normal yet. We hear a lot about that, and
Uh-oh. Did we lose Bill?
Yeah, Bill, you're breaking up there. Very good. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I suspect Bill will come back at some point and continue. So I'll just continue if that's okay, Chair Mosley.
Yes.
So Lindsay, when you talk about the difficulty that you're going to be, is Bill there? When you talk about the difficulty you're going to face with the small branches, I know of 3 in our area, 2 in Southwest Middlesex and 1 in neighboring Newbury. And it will be difficult, and you know that, to maintain the physical distancing. And the Middlesex London Health Unit has reminded Middlesex County Councils that this is going to be in place for a long time, the physical distancing part of it, until a vaccine has been released, and then for a period after. So is it fair to say, or are we jumping the gun a bit, to maybe prepare ourselves that the small libraries won't be opening anytime soon?
I mean, I think that's a conversation that we definitely have to have. And in my mind, I don't have a timeline of when those branches could open, because yeah, they are the most difficult. I think that what we want to work through is other ways that we can serve those communities, whether it is, focusing more of our resources for mailing and distributing materials in different ways there. And what else we can do for programming, pop-up programming, things, different options that we can look at, because I think that will be our biggest challenge, will be those physical spaces, and how, they're single staffed right now. How do you have one staff member there who's monitoring one person coming in at a time and then delivering a service, and a lot of consideration. So
Exactly.
yeah, that is our biggest challenge that I think we'll have to talk more about, in the coming months for sure.
Yeah,
We
the
might have to
physical-
communicate better, Mary Gay, as well, about what it is that's holding us back in some of these places.
Right.
Because I think once we do a better job of that, people may understand more. Like those little places are actually more of a nightmare than Strathroy in many respects for cleaning and everything else. And so
sure.
we probably have to do a better job of, well, as we move along, we'll do a better job of communicating that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, as Lindsay just said, the physical distancing is just a small part of it. I mean, there's much more to consider with that too. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for you, Lindsay, but I know you will be able to handle it.
But that's what the public sees, right? They only hear
That's
the
right.
physical distance. If I'm physical distancing and I'm wearing a mask, there's no problem. What's your problem?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's the world we're about to enter into.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
But Lindsay, you
Chair
do
Mosley.
have a detailed phase reopening, and there's no cut and date in stone dates for that. And it's to Mary Gay's point, I think it just you have to go along with it, follow through with it in a reasonable, timely manner that will maybe eventually get them all open, but it'll be a while, with the way the schedule that I've read here within your report. So, I mean, but we just have to take it one step at a time.
Yeah,
If I could.
Yep.
If I could,
go ahead.
Chair Mosley, but that's what the smaller municipalities, maybe they all are dealing with that have these small libraries, they're dealing with. I mean, the retail's open, so why aren't our libraries? And that includes all libraries, so yeah, I agree. Just maybe do a better chance or better
Make them aware.
Yeah, making the public aware that there's more to than just the physical distancing when you reopen libraries. So thank you.
Well, just getting a book's better than it was the 1st of April. So
True.
Yep.
You've done a good job, Lindsay.
Yep.
Excellent, you and staff. Thank you.
But that's a really good point about what we can start to work on now, is that communication piece. We've been talking about services and programs, but now it's more like, this is what library service can look like. This is what it has to look like, and this is where it can happen, and start those discussions with people to be realistic with them, but show them what we are able to do, and that we're here to work hard for them and get them the services and things that they need. But yeah, that communication piece is going to be really important. There's just another question from Ruth in the chat box. Just once you do start having entry by appointment, will you need to hire more or help manage this? I think it's just going to be reallocating staff time, and that's another challenge. That's one of the challenges that the public doesn't see, is that, you know, the extra cleaning responsibilities, the fact that perhaps really staff would have to be behind the desk anytime the public is in the facility potentially. That's something that we've talked about with different libraries. So you can't be out picking books when the patrons are there, that sort of thing. And the fact that someone has to monitor who's coming in, do the screening checklist, you know, point people to the hand sanitizer, that whole procedure. So there's not going, I don't think at this time there's going to be the need for additional staff beyond, you know, our current full part-time staff that are on layoff, but it's shifting people around and just reallocating responsibilities. So just going back to my notes. So we are focusing on the 6 branches, the 5 comprehensive branches, Strathroy, Dorchester, Glencoe, Lucan, Park Hill, and then Kamoka as well. And then looking to extend service when we can to other locations. And as the chair pointed out, there aren't any firm dates or timelines set with these phases. We may move back and forth depending on what's happening. Things from phase 1 may carry on into phase 4 or 5. There's that flexibility that we tried to build into the plan, where we could try to anticipate as much as we could, but keep things open for all the changes that are going to come. So I just ended so we are currently in phase 2 of the plan that's before you. So the curbside and appointments. And then the phase 3, 4, 5 are listed there with a bit more detail. And then the report just ends with some strategic planning considerations. We still intend to do some visioning with you in the fall, and we'll work on that schedule and get that out to you. So there are just a few things that we need to keep in mind for our next plan, however long we expect that plan to be. So health and sanitation requirements, economic recovery, opportunities to support local service delivery, and this, you know, increased focus on virtual experiences and programming. So just some topics to think about that we'll explore a bit further when we're working on strategic planning. So there is a recommendation for approval before you, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Is there any further questions before we move on to the motion? A very detailed report, Lindsay, and thank you for going through it. I understand a lot better than when I first read it, so thank you.
Jim, the only one thing I would wonder, because I was in and out a little bit, but Lindsay, did you comment on that idea of uncertainty among part-time staff about what's happening? It would be good to give them some certainty. Did you talk about any of your conversations with them at all, or
In terms
that
of,
is well, Mary Gay asked a question about people going back to work, but we also have anxiety, I think, that's building in part-time staff just about, are they ever going to go back to work, and are they want to sort of start planning in their brain for different things. And I'm hearing from those folks that it'd be nice to know some certainty around things, and we may or may not be able to provide.
Yeah, and so that I did mention, you know, that when we go to increase our current service level, so adding hours for curbside and computers, that we will need to bring back part-time staff. And so we're working on that plan to bring back part-time staff. And so we're working on that plan to give that first of staff because yeah, they are coming of the serve benefit, and you know their questions and challenges that they're working on. So we're definitely mindful of that. So that's what I'm going to be working on over the next couple of weeks, is what that staffing plan looks like, and communicating back to them.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect.
Cindy, let the dismute. There you go.
Thanks through the chair. I just wanted to point out that Lindsay and I have been discussing options for social services staff to return to the library. Again, health and safety of staff and the public are top priority. Currently, we are able to provide Ontario Work through phone and email, and this is working good so far. We're going to take our time to safely transition back to offering services in the library. And I guess I just want to point out again, at the beginning, that will look different. We'll try to be creative in what that looks like, but we're not in a rush. And Lindsay and I will take our time to figure out how to do this.
Thank you. Any other questions then? Okay, there is a recommended motion. Get a support for that. Moved by Warden and seconded by Ruth. Any further comments on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Once again, that was a good report, Lindsay. Let's go on to item C, correspondence information items. I'm going to go through these, and I've got a few points where Lindsay wants to speak on them. But if you've got any questions, just put your hand up. I'll try to catch it. Next item number one was our C1 is library info, June 30th, systems, e-resource and internet, 2020-2019. Item two is library accounts payable, June 19th, totaling $6,234.77. Next is vital programming participation, May and June. Lindsay, you want to speak on that, highlights?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight a few of the new programs that we ran in May and June. So we had our first virtual author visit there at the end of May. It was a local author, and now the book title has escaped my memory, but I know that Ruth was attending, and it was organized by the Lucan branch supervisor, and it was our first try, and it was a group of, let me see the number, 32 people. And some were from as far away as the UK, and it was just so much fun. And I know Chris is working on a couple local author, kind of local history author programs as well. So we got great traction and support from other organizations who promoted that program as well. So it was a lot of fun, and I hope Ruth enjoyed it as well. And then Shauna mentioned we have a kids virtual book club running that's doing really well. We have the story time with our mayors program that the warden and Councillor Vanderheyden kind of headed. And so we're about halfway through our schedule of story times. That's gone really well. And any of you who would like to do a story time, just let me know. We can set you up with the book and the technology and get your video out there, because I think the mayor's had a lot of fun. And I'd just like to go back to Shauna's presentation and just reiterate that, her and the other library staff and early on staff did an amazing job transforming our typical in-person program, which has been so successful the last couple of years with our Camp Read Some More, transitioning that into a virtual program. And the fact that we have, almost 500 kids already registered, I think that's huge for a virtual program. And hopefully we'll get a few more as we move forward. But we're going to have a fun summer, I think.
Good. Thank you. Next, we'll deal with item 4, which is our social media activity made June 2020. Next, we'll deal with adult summer reading program, Push Your Shelf. Questions on that? Next is our early on child impacts stories, information to June 30th. Lindsay had a comment on that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention to this project that Nadine and the early on staff have worked on. So they gathered impact stories from their families, from people who've been participating in their circle times and virtual experiences. And we're going to, Nadine is working on packaging them into like a virtual flip book and different ways that we can promote them and share them with the public. I think she's got about 15 stories so far, and just a lot of fun. So I'll be bringing that once it's kind of in its finished product. I'll bring that forward for everyone to see as well.
Okay. Is there any questions at all with respect to the correspondence and information items C1 to C6? Seeing none, I looked at item C1, the library through C6 be received for information. Moved by Mary Gay, seconded by Ruth. Any further comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any inquiries? Oh, under inquiries, I'm going to ask if Mary Gay, you want to comment with respect to Souls?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mosley, for that. Excuse me. So last Thursday afternoon, there was a Solus webinar, and basically just a round table with a lot of people online to discuss library boards during reopening. And a lot of things we've touched on here today, but I'll just make it brief and go over some of the things. So one of the topics of discussion was how is your board staying focused and engaging with its members during this time? It was interesting, some of the answers that came up. Some of the boards are meeting now every 2 weeks. I thought that was really interesting. Of course, Zoom meetings seems to be the new normal. Everybody's keeping in contact that way. It was really kind of funny that a few of the different boards said that they were really surprised how much better attendance they had now that they were having virtual meetings, Zoom meetings. So I thought that was interesting. Apparently their attendance hadn't been that great before. So some good coming out of that. A lot of discussion around internet issues when the demand for online services has increased so dramatically during this pandemic. And we're not the only ones with that. It's a really big issue right across the province. So how is your board maintaining the flow of information and of course agendas dealing with normal issues and of course emails if there's something else comes up. Lot of issues with technical issues with these virtual meetings. I mean, we all experience them from time to time, and I'm sure that's going to take some time to kind of get resolved. Maybe they'll always exist, I don't know. I did put a comment in there that I thought that the Middlesex library system did an excellent job at keeping their board members current on all information and the great job that they have done during this pandemic, but they always do a great job. We have actually, our board has no role in recalling staff. That was another discussion. I did mention earlier that somebody pointed out that they are booking 45-minute appointments and sticking to that. They'll have somebody there policing that. And obviously there won't be the computers that they once had. They'll be taking some of them out to ensure that there's the physical distancing. And of course, we'll get ready for the new normal, cleaning during that 15-minute break between appointments. Everybody is expected to be on time. Really rigid schedules. I'm sure it's going to take some getting used to. Policy work. So your governance policies up to date, your health and safety policy, has it been reviewed in the last year? And Lindsay, you and I talked a bit this morning about this before the meeting. I told you I'd be bringing this up, that they're asking that all library boards have a work from home policy. And I'm assuming you want to speak to that a little bit, Lindsay?
Sure. So Jessica and I, the county HR manager, she has a policy drafted. So once that's passed through county council, I think will probably be the process. Then we would of course adopt it. It would just, we already follow the HR policies of the county already. So it would just be a part of our standard procedure there to follow suit.
Okay, thank you. One of the library systems, the city of Ottawa, said that they've actually named theirs the Safe Work Playbook. I thought that was interesting. That's really about it. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. It's just really interesting to hear what everybody's doing and preparing for to move forward, and you know, what it's going to look like, how this is going to unfold, and that it's here probably to stay for quite a while. And they did talk a lot about that work from home policy and how it will become so important to us moving forward. So that's really about it. Are there any questions?
Ruth, go ahead. Ruth, you're mute.
Unmute, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, so I was on the call as well, but I was driving in the Niagara Peninsula and I kept running in and out of internet access. So I would lose the conversation and pick it up and I'd be somewhere else. So when you talked about it, Mary Gay, I'm so glad that you filled in my blanks, because there were parts that I went, oh yes, I remember them talking about that. And other parts, I didn't get any of the subject because of where I was driving. So thank you very much for catching us all up.
No problem. Happy to help, Ruth.
Jim,
Yeah, go ahead,
just
Bill.
on that work from home policy, I don't know if it's always evident why that's so critical, but the law and the case law around accidents that happen from home is just developing around this. And WSIB is starting to consider work from home accidents during this as claimable. And so the reason why I've asked Jessica to take a second and third look at what Lindsay is describing is because we also have to worry about what insurances people have, what accommodations they might need. There's a whole pile of things. You know, in the early days of this, people were just happy to go work from home, no questions asked. But what we're going to start seeing now is the people saying, well, hey, my chair isn't the way, you know, the same stuff we deal with in the workplace. Or we've actually had a situation like this before where someone said, I need you to accommodate my access to some part of my house if I'm going to use it as a home office. And so a lot of these issues that you deal with in the workplace are now being transferred to the home, and the policy has to be very, very strong. And so I think you'll find that whenever she does release the third draft, it's going to be really strong in that regard. But you should watch for that as a board, that these issues are starting to develop to the point where I'm starting to wonder whether it's safer to have people at work, because the risk is pretty high having them at home for certain employees. It's something to think about.
Yep. Well, we'll see the policy and then we'll know.
Maybe board members too. I don't know. Jim, you might fall in your place, but you got Linda to help you.
Yeah. Too far from the fridge to fall. Okay. Any other comments with Warden Kathy? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. I could have actually probably made this comment after each of the correspondence or information items, but I don't think it should be lost. And Mary Gay has mentioned it a couple times, but I don't think it should be lost on any of us what an incredible job Lindsay and your team have done over the last few months. When you look at some of the usage reports and the engagement reports, you know, you're still, if not, you're still accessing our audience and perhaps even broadening it. And you know, it's difficult. There's no question. I think about if I had kids that were young, I would certainly be accessing it, but you know, it's going to go in ebbs and flows. And I think we have to understand that, because this whole format's very challenging for families and for people to kind of embrace, but you really have done an incredible job. And I just don't want that to get lost on anyone, because, and I hope that you pass that on to your team, because, you know, your slow, systematic approach, who knows how long we're going to be doing this for. And everybody needs to be congratulated on that. So that's just my comments. And once again, quiz night, big hit. I actually have a group of girlfriends in Owen Sound actually that participate in it. So it's much broader than Middlesex County. So just so you know, and their request is something to do with soap operas. They would love a soap opera quiz because, you know, they didn't do too well on the archaeology one, but soap operas they think that they could handle. So, anyways, congratulations.
Give them a Donnelly quiz and see how everybody does. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yes, and I just want to add to that. I have friends that belong to both the London Public Library and the Middlesex County Library, and they say there's no comparison. Middlesex blows London out of the water for what they offer. So feel very pleased.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will pass these congratulations on to staff. We have an all staff meeting on next Monday scheduled, so I definitely will. So thank you so much. I'm glad you're all enjoying our programming, and I will pass on the soap opera suggestion because I like it. And yeah, thank you so much.
I'd just like to echo Ruth's comments. One thing is I wouldn't say about, with respect to London, how you blow them out of the water. I wouldn't just leave it at the library in Middlesex. I'd expand it right across the leadership. So that's my personal view, and that's all it is. Thank you. Let's, any other questions or comments in? Okay, next we'll move on to new business. We had a discussion, both Kathy and Lindsay, and I think through the bill as well, with respect to the July 14th meeting. It's in a question mark. It's only a few weeks away, and I don't know if it's. I heard Mary Gay's comment. Somebody has them every 2 weeks, but you know, I mean, I'll send you a picture if that's what you're looking for. But I just. I know that we talked about reducing our numbers when we were allowed to, when the province brought out the new Library Act. And I just don't know if it's unless something comes up, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Lindsay, but we didn't feel that we would need the July meeting.
Yes, I don't anticipate any major changes between now and July 14th. And I will definitely update you, you know, if there are any changes or additions, but and if anything came up, we could do something later in the month in June, but or in July, sorry.
Yep.
That we can plan for that August meeting instead, if everyone is agreeable to that.
Do we need a motion on that, Kathy?
No.
Okay, so we'll just, unless there's a comment not to, we'll just dismiss the July meeting unless it's when we can have a call to the chair if we need one, but if we don't, then we'll move to August 11th and as our next meeting. Okay, everybody's nodding, so that's good. Now I'll move on to bylaw to confirm proceedings of Middlesex County Library Board, which just I meant to ask, any other new business from the members? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Middlesex County Library Board, June 30th. I need a first and second motion for the bylaw. Mary Gay, seconded by Warden Kathy. All in favor? It's carried. Now third and final reading. Kathy, Warden Kathy, and Ruth. All in favor? It's carried. So I'm just, Bill was good enough to give me a set of earphones for this. I'm working with a different mic for this. Am I coming through clear?